So here's the plan. This is the camera that I have. I love these, just this look of this camera is amazing, right? I mean, the turret mount, great thing, 8mm camera. I have had one of, this is a new one that I got off of eBay, and it's in like mint condition. I'm really happy with that. So when I figure out what I'm gonna do, then I'll tear into this bad boy. But in the meantime, what I'm going to be working with is this other one that I have that I've already gutted. Okay, so what I know from this is that a Raspberry Pi 4, like a nice new Raspberry Pi, actually fits in here really, really well. Like it's got the right dimensions. What I'm running into are a couple of clearance issues. What I think I might experiment with on this, I have an old Raspberry Pi 1 that I'm not using anymore, and what I'd like to try to do on this Raspberry Pi 4 is take off the networking and the USB 2.0 hubs. So just untin this and pull them right off. Now, to make sure that I don't wreck this board, I'll be trying that first on the Raspberry Pi 1. I'll just pull off one of these and see how it works. I'm thinking just some tin tape around the parts that I don't want to hit with heat, and then a heat gun on here, and then just work it out. If I can get that out and make this operable, I have a good chance of doing the same thing on this camera. And with these two plugs moved, this is able to sync right back into here and hit out the bottom. So I should be able to mill a port here for the two USB 3 ports, and then my HDMI outs and my charging port should kind of come out the back of the camera here. So that's kind of the plan there. Now, when we get into the lens side of this, you know, it actually couldn't be much better. The surface here where the film gate used to go, once you tear it all down, very flat surface to work with. Like, it's very nice. This is the high quality camera sensor from Raspberry Pi. And I've already gotten a good image out of this. Like if you marriage those up and you get the distance between the sensor and the back of the lens element there right, and it's about that. Like it's a nice small gap. It's gonna work fine. The only issue I see here is that when we're centered up, there's a bit of a clearance issue on this side, but I think I can shave down this PCB a little bit on the corners to alleviate that problem. The main thing is, how am I going to mount the sensor to the camera? Well, interestingly enough, this lens mount from Raspberry Pi, you know, it's not the right lens mount, nor do I need an actual screw-in lens mount. But what I have here is a great way to squarely mount the back of this, right? So here's what I'm thinking, is with this piece, what I can do is I can machine a flat side here and a flat side here so I can actually hold this piece. And if I can do that, then I can also machine off maybe the top half of this ring or so, take it down to where I'm close to the tolerance I need for imaging, and maybe use some shims there to just, you know, make it perfect, get the back focus just right, because it's not going to be adjustable. But once that's there, I mean, there's enough space on either side of this IR filter for me to tap some screws through and then just mount this straight to here, which gives me a perfect spot to mount the sensor to. Now that brings up the topic of the IR filter in here. Obviously the camera needs IR. At the same time, something pretty cool happens with this sensor when you go without the IR filter. It gets a really interesting pinky kind of look that it's not dissimilar to kind of film errors that you get with an 8mm camera, and I kind of like that look. So I don't necessarily want to permanently install the IR filter here. I was thinking I could install an IR filter in here. Obviously, there's a good chance this one will break when we're machining it. So I could install a circular IR filter right here in the port there. But the interesting thing about this camera that is just making it perfect for this project is that in here you can maybe see in this element, I don't know if you can or not. Let's see if I can get a better angle of it there. So you can see the lens there, and on either side of that's the iris lens, right? So this thing has a built-in iris, which is also really, really cool. But in there as well, there is this little filter tray that it takes. Let's see, can I find it here? Yeah, it's up here. Yeah. Okay, so check this out. So this is awesome. This is a neutral density filter rack, right? And this actually slides in there, and then this knob here adjusts your neutral density filter. So it's already got an ND in it, and it's got what looks like to be like a daylight filter in there. But what I'm thinking is, I might just put the IR filter here and be able to select it or deselect it. I could have one setting here that's totally clear with no filters, one that's IR, and one that's IR plus ND. And I think that that's gonna give me options when I shoot with this. So again, let's look at this. Like, this is a mechanical iris that works perfectly. We got mechanical neutral density, not a problem there. And then we've got on this camera body, we've got over here, we've got an ASA knob, right? So this was, I'm assuming, selecting in the camera what kind of film speed you were using. But I think I can mechanically tap that switch on the back. And if I was able to do that, I could use the I/O ports on the Raspberry Pi to actually make this the ISO switch. So that could legit change the camera. And then what I have around here on this side is what I think is shutter speed. So I have this from 8 to 12 to 16 to 24 to 32 to 48. And what I think I could do is, this might actually be frame rate as well. But what I think I could do here is use this switch for shutter speed and then this switch for ISO. And then I'm not adding a bunch of junk to the camera, right? The last piece of this that I'm really interested in to start with is that this camera has a pretty neat little like visual viewfinder, right? It's built in. Obviously, these are your primary lenses, and then these secondary lenses are what your viewfinder is utilizing. And I like that. Like, I really like the ergonomics of that. It's a cool look, and I might keep this the way it is. Or what a guy could do is re-lens that element there and then stick a little LCD screen in here. And in doing that, you'd get a good view of what the camera is doing. Secondary to that, though, if I keep this optical, what I might do is install a little display back here. And the only purpose for that display would be to get a bit of a preview of your shot, potentially play back your shot, but also menu control. Now, what I want to design with this camera, I think, is a GoPro style menu. I like the way that GoPro has full featured functionality in the menu selections, but it's only 2 buttons, right? So that's pretty clever. A guy could put a display back here, a forward button and a back button, and that would be essentially all a person would need to control the menus. And frick, I think with that, like, all we need to do then is get this in here and install some batteries, get the chip working. But I mean, again, I've already gotten an image out of this, so I know that the plan is there. It's just a matter of assembly, and then when we get into the computer land, it'll be coding. And I've never done any coding before, so this is, I'm throwing myself certainly into the deep end with this. But that's kind of the general idea. The other piece of this that I'll just mention is that these cameras have some form of light sensor here, and I don't know how that worked in 8mm cameras, no idea. But what I do like is this honeycomb lens feature here, and what we have is behind the camera, there's actually a fair amount of room behind that honeycomb element, and I mean, even as you get into here, there's a fair amount of space to play with back there. So what I might do here too is put an LED panel in, and then I have the ability to actually shine light through this to add light to the shot. The one piece that I haven't noodled around with yet, because I don't know the software side of it, I know that it shoots in an H.264 codec, but I'm not sure how the Raspberry Pi handles wrappers. So I don't know if I could shoot an MP4 file with this. If I could, then what I would like to consider doing is also adding a microphone somewhere. And then obviously my shots have sound. Now, because this is recreating sort of the ergonomics of an 8mm camera, I'm not necessarily needing sound. it would be a nice feature to have, but at the same time, there's something kind of romantic about not having sound with the camera, I think, too. Last piece, and I freaking love this. So there's this mechanism here that you can see all this clockwork. And what this is this is the footage dial, right? So it's showing us how much footage we've gone through. Oddly enough, though, the way this camera works is there's the tap for it right there, okay? So if I turn this, you can hear, listen, I'll put it near my mic. So there's your 8mm film sound, like straight up. And I think what I could maybe do if I was feeling really ambitious is tap that with a motor and then run that to an I/O port too. And then whenever I trigger the camera, this could spin and give me the sound like I'm actually putting footage through the camera, which, I mean, that's pretty fancy. But again, if what I'm going for is a real recreation of an 8mm experience, that's going to work really well, I think. So yeah, I have a new camera to tear apart when the time is ready. This is your actual, like, you can see here, just so everybody gets a sense for this here. I don't have nails, so I can't do that. There we go. Okay. If we give that spring in there a good wind, like you can actually hear, that's just lovely, right? This camera was never used, like it never had film run through it. So it's in really mint shape. But that's your record button, and then just, this is so cool too. This is your trigger mount, and it just pushes the record button like that, which I just dig it. I dig it. So yeah, ultimately this will be the project. Couple of buttons on the back, screen on the back. I'm trying to mechanically tap all the switches that I can, make use of the camera's internal components, make use of the inside of the camera here, and we'll see what we get. That is it. This is Nick, who occasionally makes cool stuff, and I hope you enjoyed what you saw here today. Check back soon, and we'll have more progress for you.